All right, this next video comes to us from Choy, which is a content creator that we have reacted to quite a lot, has even gone out of their way to react back to us, specifically with their point 10 system. Very cordial and civil when they did that too. So I very much appreciate that. So make sure you are hitting that link that just showed up in the Twitch chat above my head. If you are in the future, it'll be down in the description below. Today, they're going to be talking about, is DBD a party game really? And they're probably going to talk, if I could guess, about how skill-based matchmaking has kind of edged the game more and more towards a more competitive experience, and the positives and negatives of that. And is it truly a party game anymore if it has those things in it? If you're asking what I think generally DBD still is a party game, but is a party game with competitive elements. Like, you still need to be generally good in Dead by Daylight to have a good time. I think it kind of has that like Splash Brothers. I think it kind of has that Smash Brothers mentality where it's like you can get into like the I'm gonna sweat, I'm gonna play super hard all the time thing, but like most people that hop on Dead by Daylight generally kind of play okay, but mostly just kind of mess around at the same time. And there's just kind of different groups that play the game different ways. But we will see.
Is a party game? What is a competitive game? And what is a casual game? These terms get used a lot when discussing certain video games, especially asymmetrical games like Dead by Daylight.
Old Debbie Delight.
The majority of the time, people tend to use these terms to defend their view of how a certain game should be balanced or played, without really truly considering what they
I think there's like a funny trap with that, Cassie. I know the video just started, my apologies. But like, I like what you said there, because like at low and mid-range MMR, you can just run basically whatever you want, and you can just like run a lot of silly stuff, and it doesn't affect the fun of the game very much. But I think there's just kind of like, there's a weird cognitive dissonance with the DBD community that I just always find really strange. Is that like the game's not that serious, the game's a party game, so I hate that people sweat, but also people don't take losing well, which is theoretically in a skill-based matchmaking system what keeps you in a low bracket where you can run stupid stuff. If you start learning the game and start looping really well, you're gonna escape more on average, which raises up your MMR. But if you don't want a sweaty competitive experience, if you don't want a more competitive experience, you losing a lot is how you hit that ceiling and fall back down. But people get upset when they hit that ceiling and they fall back down. They don't want to have to like lose to have their MMR go back down, which is like, I've never like understood that like expectation that like I want to have fun because it's a casual game, but I also want to keep winning all the time. Like these don't go together, you know?
Actually mean. So in this video, we're going to take a look at what the difference is between a party game, a competitive game, a casual game, where they overlap with each other, and why understanding the difference between these games is so important for DBD's future. So let's start with the party game. This quite literally means a game that can be played at a party. That usually, not always, but usually, means the game is easy to understand and to play. In nerd terms, we would say that these games have a low skill floor. Now, typically, these games are not well balanced. A lot of the time, they rely completely on random chance, with minor ways to move the favorability of winning in one's direction.
Monopoly, Mario Kart, yeah. And there are rubber band mechanics in those games, which I feel like is what, if Dead by Daylight was to be a true party game, would need. It would need rubber band mechanics. Like, for people that don't know, rubber band mechanics are essentially, if you are in first place, you're going to get worse items, whereas like the person in last place is going to get better items. That's why, like, you know, there's a lot of like, you'll be playing Mario Party, like one of the old Mario parties, and like you'll be doing well the whole game, and then like at the very end, suddenly like the person in last place is getting a lot of stars out of nowhere. It's because there's rubber band mechanics. Dead by Daylight doesn't have that. If a killer just like is tunneling at 5 gens and kills somebody in the 3v1, if this game had rubber band mechanics, if somebody got tunneled out at 4 or 5 gens, there would be like for example, like a plus 40 gen speed for the rest of the game. Essentially, think of like Soul Survivor as a base kit mechanic. That would be a rubber band mechanic, and that's what would make DBD like truly a party game. But obviously that would upset a lot of people, and it would like take away the competitiveness that a lot of people generally genuinely have fun with. So, yeah.
Party games that do have a high skill ceiling rarely have to worry about being played well by a tryhard. Let's look at Twister, for example, a
Twister, I
funny
don't
game
even know
that
her.
does require some level of physical skill to win. However, you generally don't have to worry about someone showing up to a party with 10,000 hours of Twister playtime who's learned to unhinge their joints in order to maximize their chances of winning.
I mean, we all know that dude, right? Like, you play Monopoly, and there's like, everybody else kind of shows up just to play, because Monopoly can be fun. And there's that one dude that's like, okay, well, like, what properties are the most optimal to buy? You know, like that guy. Like that guy. We don't like that guy. We don't invite that guy back.
In general, although party games can get competitive, there's a social aspect to it, and it's cringe if a person gets too competitive.
I remember. And this, like, I guess this was a bad sign. I remember one of my exes and I had to, like, not like a fight because we didn't like yell at each other, but she was genuinely pissed at me for a while because she played Monopoly with us one night, and she like had so many properties. She had so many people landing on her properties, and I was just in the background, like, buying up the blue ones at the very end, the ones that have the highest rent. Because like the version of Monopoly we were playing, they were just like cool characters at the end. So I was like, I'm gonna buy that one. I'm gonna buy that one. And then I had both the blue ones. So I was like putting my little hotels and stuff over there, which if you've played Monopoly before, that's a lot of money if you land on those. So I just like played most of the game in the background because like I only owned like 2 spots. But she owned most of the board. And she was winning the entire game against the rest of our friends. And then she landed on one of my squares and I about cleaned her out. And then she landed on another one of my squares again and like lost the game. And I was just like, ooh, I like these characters. And she was like crunching numbers and trying to like sweat Monopoly and just landed on my little blue corner twice and lost the game. In retrospect, being genuinely angry at me over something as low stakes as Monopoly, probably a very big red flag. But like, it's proof in the pudding that like, shouldn't have taken it that serious to begin with. Monopoly, that's ridiculous.
Ruins the vibe of the party, right?
Hey,
the same is true of an online party game like Mario Party. If played with friends in a party setting, the same rules apply with a lot of random elements included in the gameplay to help mitigate the competitive mindset from ruining the overall experience. The goal of a party game is to have fun in a social setting. Being a sore loser or caring too much about winning in
I have a video coming about sore winners this week.
Atypical behavior
that's weird.
Is generally frowned upon. So now let's jump over to the competitive game. The majority of time, this is referring to an online multiplayer player versus player game. The goal of a competitive game is to win. Now, it is fun to win, so you could say the point of the game is still to have fun, but I'd argue that it isn't fun to lose consistently in a...
I genuinely have fun playing the Xenomorph and just going for tail attacks. That helps me win. But like going for shots, like hitting that over the truck bed shot on Autohaven today, like multiple times, free dopamine. Free dopamine. That does win me the game because it's what you should be doing. You should be killing the survivors. But like, it's generally what brings me joy. It makes me happy. I think it's just a byproduct.
Competitive game. You have to lose sometimes or else the game is boring, but losing too often will lead to frustration because you're not having fun. Now, this is where problems start arising within the competitive game, and a lot of game developers have not yet figured out how to handle these problems. For example, if Johnny Apple...
I feel that way too, Bannett. Like, I remember when the Among Us craze was a thing, I had such a fun time playing Among Us with friends. Because I was like, I was the goofy guy. Like, I'd be the guy that I'm doing my tasks as a crewmate, and somebody just like gets murked right next to me. I'm just like, I just look at the guy who killed him and be like, good one. They keep doing what I was doing. So they would like leave me alive because I just like went and rat them out. I was like, oh, that was a good kill. And then go about my day. That was the fun for me. But then I would like attempt to play Among Us like out in like the public matches, and it was terrible. It was terrible. It was nasty. It was like people trying so hard and being so cringe. It was terrible.
Socks decides that after his 8-hour shift at work to come home to play DBD for some fun, gets absolutely destroyed by a 10,000 hour player, that's an extremely frustrating experience. Basically, why is this filthy sweat lord ruining the game by gatekeeping it with their tryhardism? So the developers on the balance...
This is why I am very happy that, like, and why it's fundamentally good design, that most of the original 4 survivors have really, really good teachables. That way, that person that comes home from that really, really long day at work can run Prove Thyself, Sprint Burst, Iron Will, even though it's not as much relevant anymore, it's still good. Like, you can run a lot of Adrenaline. You can run a lot of good perks just with the base characters. So if you are having bad games, you at least probably have this at like level 1, level 2 maybe, that you could run that could help you.
Team have to create a matchmaking system that ideally keeps these players
I like Bond a lot. It's not really
from
meta,
each
but Bond
other.
is nice.
Now this is really important, so keep this in mind. Both of these players want the same thing. They want to win because it's a competitive game, it's not a party game, and it's not a casual game. So just because
it's
players
a Frankenstein
are
of
bad
both,
or less experienced does not somehow mean they get to declare that a game is casual. That's an entitled mindset, right?
Yep.
We'll get to what
that's what we were talking about today. Like, I got we got talked about that today. Like that player, that Kate player that was shaming me. It's like that Michaela that you unhooked inside my Terrius ran straight at me, and that Michaela did not look at me. You made 0 effort to body block for her, and when I hit her, she DC'd and you flamed me. Like, the game is not casual because you are bad. That does not work that way. Oh my gosh.
Casual game is soon, but first let's take a look at the hot solution in the gaming industry to this dilemma: skill-based matchmaking, a system that assigns a hidden matchmaking rating number to every player so that they match with...
I will say, this is just an aside joke. If I ever make somebody upset as me, as skill-based matchmaking makes Choy upset, I have done something very wrong. I would never want someone to dislike and hate me as much as Choy hates skill-based matchmaking. That would frighten me. That would frighten me a lot.
Evenly skilled opponents. Seems like the obvious solution to the problem, right? So what exactly is the issue? Well, I explained this in further detail in my recent video about SBMM here, but the simple answer is that it doesn't achieve the overall goal of making the competitive game fun. Like I showed in my previous video, not only does it lead to player frustration at the high skill levels, but even for low skill players as well. At high skill levels of play, it forces veteran players to adopt a very specific playstyle or meta in order to have a chance at winning.
You know what I think would be a very, very nice solution to this? And Hor and Theo and I were talking about this the other day. Wouldn't it be nice if, like, we make the custom game that you can run with bots more robust and allow you to earn blood points at, like, a fractional rate? Wouldn't it be nice if you just wanted to play Dead by Daylight, or just try the new killer, or try new perks, but you still didn't want to lose out on blood points, that you could just go in there and earn fractional blood points and just hang out with the bots? And just like in Smash Brothers, you could have, like, difficulty ratings for the bots. They could turn them down to 1 and just, like, steamroll, but you could also turn them up to 9 and, like, you know, just practice specific strategies in sweaty, like, games, and predispose yourself to having a sweaty game without having to actually do the sweaty game. I think it would help a lot. I feel like the reason we used to, like, this has not been a conversation we have had so far, is basically because, like the hacking situation in the game, and people could just AFK in there and farm blood points. But, like, DBD is getting better every day about finding hackers. Like, you can't even AFK into the game anymore, it just boots you. So that's, like, not a thing. There's a lot of things they can do to, like, put guardrails on that so it's not abusable. Whereas it would make for a very, very, like, forced casual experience for people. Like, they can go in, turn the bots down to a low difficulty, and just play for lesser blood points and just chill. If they want to enjoy the things that are fun about DBD without the sweat, they can just go do that. So the reason people do that, Tyre, is because of accessibility to really, really strong items like syringes, styptics, BNPs, that sort of thing. That being said, that's more of a problem with the way those items function, and those should probably be looked at still. But it's the availability of, because if you farm up those blood points in customs, you can bring that easy game earnings from customs into sweat in live games is like the rationale why. That's why people don't want it. I would be happy they'd be out of my main game mode, you know? Maybe there's something to that, Cassie. Maybe like if they hide in there, that's not in our games. Maybe that's okay.
This leads to stress, frustration, and eventually boredom. Low skill players, on the other hand, are still being forced into stressful matches because SBMM is still prioritizing that perfect equal experience in skill balance. So what
obviously, before somebody leaves a comment, yeah, they need to finish killer bots before that's the thing. That way you can play Survivor and customs. I know. I'm aware.
Do not seem to realize is that high skill players want to be able to express their skill, and being forced to play the same exact way as everyone else in order to win doesn't allow them to express their personal skill ceiling. So the failure of skill-based matchmaking is that it replaces creative balance ideas like my currency system that would prioritize skill expression and instead replaces skill expression with pure game knowledge on what offers the best advantage
after my gameplay.
Actually takes the
I think it's interesting because killer hackers made bots. Like, Behavior could theoretically find those people and be like, hey, can we like without the cheating, can we have like your whatever like AI you ran for your spirit? Like, you know, like, because that's the problem with killer bots is that like you have to make a trapper AI, you have to make a wraith AI, you have to make a hillbilly AI because all the killers are unique. Whereas like Survivor, it's technically all one character just with like a bajillion different skins. So it was way easier to make a Survivor AI. But even then, a Survivor AI still has to account for all of the killer powers. So it was still fairly difficult. Hey, you want to be a morally right cheater? It's more off. That happens more often than you think. That somebody is either modding or hacking a game, and the game company's like, you know, you're actually kind of good at that. do you want to like make something for us? It's very funny. You never heard of killer bots? It was a thing back in the day. Like, it was one of those hacker things where like you would get a killer bot. And it was often like Ice Spirit. Anybody who suffered through it, you remember Ice Skin Spirit used to scare you initially because you're like, Ice Skin Spirit was one of the killer bots. For some reason, it was just super popular. So you would get Ice Skin Spirit, you'd be like, please don't be a killer bot. Because you would know, because after you would get one, it would advertise in the after chat through an auto message, hey, you should buy our killer bot. You should buy our hacks.
Situation where advantage trumps skill. Again, this violates the key principle of what makes a competitive game truly fun, which is winning. If the chances of winning become significantly higher by using advantage, that's conditioning the player base to worship meta over trying to improve as players, and that's a failed system at the top skill level. Alright, but what about low skilled players? At least in this system, they get to have some peace without all the sweat lords ruining their experience, right? No, even if the SBMM system worked perfectly, which at least in DBD's case, it clearly doesn't, low skilled players still want to win in a competitive game. And just because they don't have as much game knowledge as veteran players...
I'm going to say something. I know this is getting into hot take territory. That's stupid and immature of somebody to feel. To know nothing about a game, not knowing what good perks are to run, not knowing how to loop, not knowing map knowledge, not knowing anything that you would attribute to a good trait in a player, but still wanting good results is immature. That's silly. If you want good results, you should do things that will reward you with good results. That's literally the textbook definition of entitlement. I should win just cause it's a bad mentality. I've never understood it.
Players does not mean it's any less stressful trying to win extremely balanced matches against equally matched opponents. Those really intense close matches that require a player's full concentration, where the slightest mistake costs them the match and they lose, can be fun and even memorable to have occasionally, but having those matches every single time isn't memorable, and again, it's too stressful, leading to frustration and ultimately burnout.
You guys have those games? I hear people say this, but for some reason that's just like not the case with me. I'll have like a day where like I've clearly like boosted my MMR too high, and I'll have matches like that for a day, but then like the next day it's like back to normal. Yeah, most days I'm either winning or it's like a 50-50. Like I'll have days where all my games are super close and they're super stressful, and I'm like, ugh, today's not the day for DBD. But then it'll be back to normal tomorrow. I don't have that experience that people have where like they're constantly having all of those like non-stop close matches. So I don't know what that's like. Yeah, I just don't know what it's like. And I don't know why I don't have that experience. Especially somebody who plays the game almost non-stop. I don't know.
What low-skilled players and even some high-skilled players truly want is a casual game, not a competitive game. So what the hell is a casual game, and how is it any different from a party game or a competitive game? Well, one thing you hear all the time is that a casual game isn't balanced. A casual game is chaotic and balance is for nerds. Think the OG Modern Warfare 2.
No, like if you played during this, you hated those things. I hate this example. Not Choy specifically making the example, but people bring this example up a lot. Dude, if you're on the receiving end of those stupid noob tubes, you wanted to cry. You hated your life. You were mad. Either you got on the board and you started making other people miserable, or you were the miserable. Stupid. It was dumb. Made you mad.
Slap on Army of One and Danger Close, which allowed for infinite grenade launcher rounds that just killed everything
other people's
in an
expense,
enormous
yeah.
radius with almost no skill. Stupid, inconsequential, unbalanced fun. The problem is, this logic doesn't apply to an asymmetrical game like Dead by Daylight.
I didn't apply that.
One side's
I hated
fun
being hit
is
by
at
that
the
stuff.
direct cost of the other side. So in order for one side to swim, the other side must drown. In Modern Warfare 2, if someone was using a ridiculously overpowered loadout, you could swap to that same loadout and give it right back to them. But you cannot do that in an asymmetrical game.
That's what we were talking about in Duncan and I's conversation. It was that like talking about having like an anti-tunnel mechanic base for survivors. So killers always have the ability to hard tunnel at 5 gens. That is always a playstyle that is always available to them, period. But survivors don't have anti-tunnel available to them. They have to run a specific build for anti-tunnel, or have specific teammates to help them anti-tunnel, or be in a specific map that has a lot of resources to be not tunneled. It's not consistently available to survivors, but it's consistently available to killers.
So there does have to be some semblance of balance. However, the primary point of a casual game, even an asymmetrical one, is to have fun. Winning is the secondary objective. This is done by making a fun-focused gameplay loop that's even fun when losing. Now, modern developers seem to have, in a lot of ways...
That's why my favorite killers to face in the game, obviously Xenomorph, because it's a character I know a lot about, but like barely dodging a pyramid at M2. Dodging a non-laggy Huntress Hatchet. Barely getting a little haircut from a Billy Chainsaw and still dodging it, like, ooh, love facing those characters. Because like even if that Billy wins, barely clutching a dodge feels good. It feels exciting. It feels thrilling. If there were more experiences like that in Dead by Daylight, I guarantee people would not complain.
Is given up on this as a possibility. In their minds, gamers are just too competitive and there's nothing they can really do about it. Yet I see this as a
well, they're gonna have
and
to ever let you
short-sighted
dodge, then I'm
answer.
impressed. Yeah, you're throwing that in there, Mr. Space Bar to win. Yeah, I'm impressed if they do that. If a Huntress like isn't looking at me and flicks correctly and hits me, I'm like, oh wow, good flick. If a Pyramid Head like judges exactly where I'm going and just like hits me with the rights of judgment, I'm like, good prediction. I'm like, nice one, good job. It was like I know what they're doing is difficult to pull off because they have to get a right read. They didn't, I don't know, slide it under a pallet with a single button, then M1. Yeah.
It is not easy to create a casual game, and not every game needs to be a casual game. But in DBD's case, it absolutely needs and deserves a casual game mode. And there is no greater collection of horror icons anywhere in the entertainment world, and it's not fair at all that in order to experience it as a horror fan, you have to deal with a competitive gaming environment. Now, since Behavior is actively exploring this idea in DBD through monthly gameplay modifiers, aka new game modes, I have a lot of hope for the future of DBD from a casual perspective.
Good.
As long as Behavior doesn't think that simply adding a casual game mode is an excuse to not improve the core issues with SPMM for the veteran players. So hopefully that's not what ends up happening. Now let's discuss the elements of how you make a casual game mode work in a
which is really like depressing, Scorched. It's really depressing. Like when I get hit by like a really, really good patch and a really, really good Rights of Judgment, I'm like impressed. I'm like, oh, nice one. It's just like when somebody like dodges my strafe shot as Xenomorph, like I look at that survivor, I'm like, ooh, good dodge. And you guys hear me say that a lot. I'm like, ooh, good dodge. Like no matter how like frustrating the match is, no matter how like bad the match is going, I'm like, okay, right, that was the right play, good play, you know, because it is. And I don't feel like people have too much pride to admit that. It's kind of like, because DBD is so RNG based, I feel like it's like opened up this Pandora's box of like everything in the game is potentially bullshit because it's mostly an RNG game. Where in reality, I feel like there's way less RNG than people think there is, and they just use it as their scapegoat to complain.
Game like DBD, allowing 50-hour players to play with 10,000-hour players, and everyone still has an enjoyable experience? That's not easy to pull off. Anybody who claims that's easy has no idea what they're talking about. It's important to be realistic here. A lot of playtesting is required in any game mode. No matter how good something might seem on paper, does not mean that it translates well to a real gaming experience. So there are really simple ideas like prop hunt that are very casual and fun, but it leaves out a lot of what makes DBD DBD. I do believe that at some level, players are still looking for a similar yet more casual approach to the core gameplay loop in DBD. Now, one thing I have learned recently about casual game design is the more players there are, the easier it is for a game to be casual.
No, I think it would be fine, Scorch, because like that's more common in gaming, especially in 2024, is that most games have a story mode or like a practice PvE mode and then online play. Most games have like a story mode and then like a PvE mode and then like an online play mode. Like that's like fighting games make it work literally all the time. Mortal Kombat will have like a story mode and then like the towers mode and then online multiplayer. And online multiplayer doesn't suffer because people mostly play the game to play casual. The people that actually buy Mortal Kombat are not the FGC. It's the old dude in his 30s or 40s that remember playing Mortal Kombat in the arcades that wants to revisit his favorite characters again. So he goes and he plays the new story mode and he's like, oh, that's interesting. Scorpion's a good guy now? That's crazy. And then he starts playing the towers, ladders mode, whatever it happens to be based on what Mortal Kombat it is, because like he wants to keep playing his favorite character. And that guy is buying skins, putting more money into the game, even though he's not in the multiplayer zone. But there's still that very big flourishing FGC side of things where people play online. And casual players filter into that because they want other ways to keep playing their favorite game. It's not unheard of. It's definitely not unheard of, and it definitely wouldn't ruin Dead by Daylight.
And this is especially true for asymmetrical games. If you look at the 1v7 formula of Friday the 13th, it's way easier to make that gameplay loop casual than the 3v4 formula found in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
A lot of those games are not fun there? Huh? Wait, a lot of the games, are we talking about like Mortal Kombat and stuff? You can say what you want about Mortal Kombat. It is a fun game. Yeah, they are fun. They would not sell egregiously much as they do if they weren't fun. Yeah, they're very fun. So I think so.
Dealing with smaller numbers, the gameplay becomes more controlled, less dynamic, and very tight. Whereas when there's more players, that casual chaotic fun is able to shine brighter and more organically. So an example of this would be like a game mode where there's 8 survivors and only 1 killer, but the killer can mori the survivors on their first down.
Oh, the double bubble.
Something in that design direction is the recipe for the type of gameplay that becomes fun and unserious enough to the point where it's less about winning and more about enjoying the gameplay experience.
Oh my gosh, how'd you
Another
win that?
really requested idea in the DBD community is the 2v8 game mode. Regardless, just trying to increase the player count in general is the best way for behavior to set themselves up for success.
Oh my gosh.
Also, one of the best ways to test a casual game mode idea is asking yourself if you would recommend it to the most casual gamer you know, or possibly even someone who doesn't generally play video
Yeah, I feel like this game mode would be perfect for like literally for the casual audience. Like, hey, you wanna grab an energy drink and some Doritos and go play killer together? Like it's like 8 people. Yeah, you know, that is exactly who that would hit. You know, like, hey, you want to order some pizza and like do a LAN party? People don't do LAN parties anymore. You want to all hop in a Discord call, all 8 of us, and all go face some killers together? Like, that is exactly who that would hit. Or order some pizza in a Discord call. 3 of us here. The rest of the other 5 go together. The game modes in other games are very boring or unplayable. What? I grinded the hell out of like the Mortal Kombat ladders and stuff like that. I grinded the hell out of those. Yeah, I grinded the hell out of those. You didn't find... Wow. That's interesting. I don't know if that's like a common or like court of public opinion take, but like I always enjoyed being able to play like the alternative modes and like story mode game and then the alternative modes, because like I just wanted to play more of the gameplay I had in the story mode, except more. So I would just play the alternative modes and have a good time.
Games at all. If you think that person would have a chance to enjoy it,
Do a Call of Duty tunnel layers, double Xenos. It's lore accurate,
then it's most likely an idea that has legs. Another thing often seen in the more successful casual games are rubber bands. If you're not
we were talking about that. We were talking about this in the beginning.
Design element that pulls players back when they get too far ahead and pushes them forward when they get too far behind. This is seen in more casual racing games like Road Rash. The person in first place is always being caught up to by everyone behind them, forcing a lot of player interaction and chaotic shenanigans. This is a design element that is sacrilegious in competitive games, but in casual games it helps preserve the spirit of the casual experience. In general, a casual game is taking the essence of what a party game is and then applying that to an online anonymous competitive ecosystem. That's why, again, anyone who says that's easy to do in a game like DBD has absolutely no idea what they're talking about. There's always going to be a lot of resistance. It's incredibly difficult to make players not take a game too seriously.
Honestly, with all the stuff that we've talked about today, I know by all means Beaver would probably not do this, but like, I really want Dead by Daylight 2. Take the time to make out a fleshed out, fun story mode with all of our favorite survivors. Make a lot of these alternative game modes, that way you can play PvE without having to deal with the sweaty players. And then, like, mix and round out some of the issues with the online experience, put that back out, and then fix the spaghetti code while you're at it. If it's not already in production, maybe it's time. This game is extremely old. 8 years old this year. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to start working on the next big thing. On a Dead by Daylight 2. If the game is running out of steam because it's getting too sweaty, maybe we need Dead by Daylight, the story mode. Maybe we need Dead by Daylight, the like, you know, take like the challenges that are in the Rift already, for us and make it like a challenge mode or something. Make 1v1ing like a special like game mode or something that you can play on purpose. Like make your chase better or something. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do. So I don't know. Like there's a lot to be gained, in my opinion, from like kind of not cutting your losses per se, but kind of being like, hey, we've done a lot with Dead by Daylight 1. It was a massive success. Let's take it to the next level. Story mode. PvE mode. Keep the online mode that we all love. Minus the spaghetti code, and I don't see how that doesn't print money for you. But that kind of, like, that legitimately kind of just, like, writes itself. You imagine, like, I don't know. You imagine, like, somebody's like, wow, I really liked Kate as the leader of the group. But I wish she had more scenes or something. Like, it writes itself. You can see this in the future. I really liked that scene in the story mode where Dwight hopped in the locker. I was so true to the character. You know, like, I don't know. I think that would just be good.
Now, obviously, there are outliers. Some players are just lame, and they're going to always take everything too seriously, no matter how casual it is. But attempting to say that DBD's core mode is a party game or a casual game, in my opinion, is not realistic at all. The truth is that Dead by Daylight is a competitive game with a huge casual audience who do deserve a way to play the game in a more casual setting. I think that's the most genuine way the game can be described. The last thing I
you can even do it like Mortal Kombat does it, where, like, you know, Mortal Kombat is a fighting game, so, like, you know, they'll do a story segment and then enter a fight. Like, you could do, like, oh, I feel like that would be really, really cool if you could have like the survivors talking about how scared they are to be there, and then like entering the trial and then just like playing out a normal trial, like as like similar to the gameplay that we have now, and then coming back to like a cutscene of them going, oh my gosh, I got sacrificed. I can still kind of feel it. And it's like they're like scared. Like, I don't know, I feel that'd be cool.
Mention in this video is that this upcoming Blood Moon event looks pretty sick. At the time of recording this, I have no clue what's going on, but I'm looking forward to trying it out. With that said, let me know what you believe is the best example of a casual online multiplayer game, and feel free to elaborate as much as you want on why. Also, as always, thanks for watching and have a good one.
Yeah, I feel like DBD is at its heart like a little party game, but it just has so many like competitive elements. It's like we were talking about in that last video. It's like you're just at a position in current Dead by Daylight where like you should be prepared for a sweaty experience, even if you don't go in planning to have one. And having a more like setting your expectations appropriately, or bringing the right build or play styles to prepare for something potentially going wrong or against what you want. Yeah, I think the like we've been talking about, I feel like the main way we really could solve this is by like, you know, obviously completing killer bots and giving people that want to enjoy the things that make Dead by Daylight great without entering the online sweaty space, allow them to get fractional blood points and just like hang out in customs if they want. You can PvE and hang out. And in the long term, DBD 2 with more PvE game modes and campaign/story, and then multiplayer in addition. That'd be really cool. I see this stuff and I'm like excited. You know, like I would love to have like I know I know that so many people would love to just sit in customs without the stress of like a online experience, turn the survivor difficulty down to like 1 and just like hang out as Michael Myers or hang out as Freddy or whoever you happen to want to play. Like I feel like that would be a really nice experience for people that didn't want to deal with that, and that keeps people like buying skins and doing stuff like that without just like having burnout and feeling like they need to quit the game all the time. So like I feel like the short term would be like actually make customs a viable way to play the game, an enjoyable way to play the game, and then have it where you know, eventually we work on DBD 2 that fleshes out a full game experience and not just a single game mode experience.